The day I realized I was missing. It was a normal morning, at least, that's what it looked like from the outside. The alarm rang at 7 a.m., just like every other day. I got up, brushed my teeth, checked my phone, and scrolled through notifications that didn't really matter. Everything was routine, predictable, mechanical, but somewhere between staring at my reflection in the mirror and taking that first sip of coffee, something felt wrong. I remember looking at myself for a little longer than usual that day. Not to fix my hair or adjust my shirt, but to recognize the person staring back at me. And that's when it hit me. I didn't feel connected to that face anymore. It was familiar, sure, but it didn't feel like me. It felt like I was playing a role, like an actor who had forgotten who they were behind the character. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I'm just tired, I told myself. Maybe it's just stress. But deep down, I knew this feeling wasn't new. It had been building for a long time, hidden under busy schedules, fake smiles, and constant distractions. I had ignored it again and again, hoping it would disappear. But that morning, it didn't. It stayed, and that was the beginning of everything. Not the beginning of success or happiness, but the beginning of a realization that somewhere along the way, without even noticing it, I had lost myself. The version I used to be. There was a time when life felt different, lighter, clearer, more real. I wasn't constantly overthinking every decision or questioning every step I took. Back then, I used to laugh without calculating how it sounded. I spoke my mind without rehearsing every sentence in my head. I had opinions, dreams, and a sense of direction that felt genuinely mine, not borrowed, not influenced, not filtered. I remember the younger version of me vividly. Someone who had curiosity in their eyes and energy in their voice. I used to get excited about small things, new ideas, random plans, even simple conversations. I didn't need validation from others to feel good about myself. I didn't measure my worth based on likes, opinions, or comparisons. I just existed, and that existence felt enough. But slowly, things started changing. Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but in subtle, almost invisible shifts. I began adjusting myself to fit into situations. I started holding back my thoughts to avoid conflict. I chose silence over honesty, comfort over authenticity. And each time I did that, I lost a tiny piece of who I was. Looking back now, I realize something important. I didn't suddenly become a different person. I slowly edited myself, version by version, until the original felt distant, almost forgotten. And the worst part? I didn't even notice when that transition crossed the line from growth to loss. The life that wasn't mine. At some point, my life started looking perfect, from the outside. I was doing what I was supposed to do. Following the safe path. Making choices that made sense to everyone else. A stable routine, predictable goals, socially acceptable decisions. If someone looked at me, they'd probably say, "You're doing well." And honestly, I believed that too, for a while. But inside, something didn't sit right. It was like living in a house that looks beautiful but doesn't feel like home. Every decision I made started feeling less like a choice and more like an obligation. I wasn't asking myself what I wanted anymore. I was asking, what should I do? And there's a big difference between the two. I started saying yes to things I didn't care about. I started chasing goals that didn't excite me. I built a routine that kept me busy but not fulfilled. And the more I followed this version of life, the quieter my real thoughts became. It wasn't that I didn't have desires, it's just that I stopped listening to them. And that's when it clicked, slowly but clearly. I wasn't living my life anymore. I was living a version of life that had been shaped by expectations, pressure, and fear. A life that looked right, but didn't feel right. And without realizing it, I had become a stranger in my own story. The silent compromises. It didn't happen in one big decision. There was no single moment where I chose to walk away from myself. Instead, it was a series of small compromises, so small that they didn't feel dangerous at the time. Saying, "It's okay," when it wasn't. Staying quiet when I had something to say. Agreeing just to avoid conflict. Each moment felt harmless, almost practical. At first, these compromises felt like maturity. Like I was learning how to adjust, how to survive, how to be smart in a complicated world. People even appreciated it. You've become more understanding, they said. More flexible. And I took that as a compliment, not realizing that flexibility was slowly turning into disappearance. But every time I ignored my own voice, it got a little weaker. Every time I chose comfort over truth, I moved a little further away from who I was. It wasn't painful in the beginning, it was quiet. Almost unnoticeable, like a background noise you only hear when everything else goes silent. And one day, when I finally tried to listen to myself again, there was nothing clear left to hear. Just confusion, just noise. That's when I understood something brutal. Losing yourself doesn't feel like losing something. It feels like slowly becoming someone else, without ever realizing it. The noise in my head. By now, silence had become uncomfortable. The moment I wasn't distracted, no phone, no music, no conversations, my mind would start racing. Thoughts overlapping thoughts, doubts colliding with fears. It felt like there were too many voices inside my head, but none of them sounded like me. And the more I tried to figure things out, the more confusing it got. I started questioning everything, my choices, my goals, even my personality. Is this really what I want? Do I even like this? Who was I before all of this? But instead of getting answers, I just went deeper into overthinking. It was like trying to find clarity in a storm. The harder I looked, the less I could see. To escape that chaos, I kept myself busy. Constant scrolling, random videos, unnecessary conversations. Anything to avoid being alone with my own thoughts. It worked, temporarily. But the moment everything slowed down, the noise came back, even louder than before. Distraction wasn't solving anything, it was just delaying the truth. And the truth was simple, yet hard to accept. I had spent so much time ignoring myself that now, when I needed answers the most, I didn't even know where to look. My mind wasn't my safe space anymore. It had become a battlefield, and I didn't even know which side I was on. The moment everything paused, it didn't come as a dramatic breakdown or some life-changing event. It was actually a very ordinary evening. I was sitting alone, doing nothing in particular, no phone, no music, no distractions. For the first time in a long while, everything around me was quiet. And in that silence, something shifted. At first, it felt uncomfortable. My mind tried to run, to find something to escape into. But this time, I didn't let it. I just sat there, still, watching my thoughts instead of reacting to them. And slowly, the noise started settling, not completely, but enough for me to notice something beneath it. There was a strange emptiness. Not the kind that hurts, but the kind that feels honest. Like everything fake had been stripped away, and what was left was just raw, unfiltered reality. No roles, no expectations, no pretending. Just me, without labels, without direction, without clarity. And for the first time, I didn't run from it. That moment didn't fix anything. I didn't suddenly find answers or become a different person. But it did something important, it forced me to face the truth. That I had been avoiding myself for too long. And maybe, just maybe, the way forward wasn't about finding something new, but about finally turning back and facing what I had left behind. Meeting the real me again. That night didn't change my life instantly, but it changed my direction. Instead of running from myself, I started observing. Not judging, not fixing, just noticing. What I felt, what I avoided, what triggered me, what drained me. It was uncomfortable at first, like meeting a stranger who somehow knew everything about me. I began asking simple questions. Not big, dramatic ones, just honest ones. Do I actually enjoy this? Why did I say yes to that? What am I trying to avoid? And slowly, patterns started appearing. I realized how much of my behavior wasn't coming from choice, but from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood. There were moments when I didn't like what I saw. Habits I had built, decisions I had made, ways I had changed. It would have been easy to blame people, situations, or circumstances. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had allowed it. Not intentionally, but gradually. And accepting that responsibility was uncomfortable, but necessary. And somewhere in that process, something subtle happened. I started recognizing small pieces of my old self again. Not the exact same person, but fragments of authenticity. A thought that felt real. A reaction that wasn't filtered. A moment where I didn't overthink. It wasn't a full comeback, but it was a start. Rebuilding, one choice at a time. I used to think finding myself again would be some big, powerful moment, like everything would suddenly make sense. But reality was way more practical than that. It didn't come as a breakthrough. It came as small, almost boring decisions. The kind no one notices, but they slowly change everything. I started choosing differently, saying no when I actually meant no, taking breaks without feeling guilty, speaking honestly, even if my voice felt a little shaky. At first, it felt unnatural, like I was going against the version of myself I had built over time. But deep down, it also felt right, like I was correcting something. Not everyone liked this version of me. Some people were confused, some were uncomfortable, and honestly, I understood why. They were used to the old version, the one who adjusted, agreed, and stayed easy to deal with. But this time, I didn't bend just to fit in. I wasn't trying to be difficult, I was just trying to be real. And slowly, those small choices started stacking up. Each honest decision, each boundary, each moment of self-awareness, it all added up. I wasn't fully found yet, but I was no longer lost in the same way. I had started building something new, not from expectations, but from truth. Understanding what I lost. Somewhere along this journey, I realized something unexpected. I hadn't actually lost myself completely. That version of me was never gone. It was just buried, covered under layers of fear, expectations, habits, and distractions. And once I started removing those layers, slowly, I could still feel that core version of me existing underneath. I began to understand what really happened. I didn't lose myself in one moment. I drifted away over time. Every time I ignored my instincts, every time I chose approval over honesty, every time I stayed silent instead of being real, I moved a little further away. It wasn't destruction, it was distance. And that realization changed everything. Because if it was distance, not loss, then coming back was possible. Not by chasing some perfect version of myself, but by reconnecting with what was always there. My thoughts, my values, my way of seeing the world. The parts of me that felt true, even if they were messy or imperfect. For the first time, I stopped trying to become someone. I focused on removing what wasn't me. And in that process, things became clearer. Not perfectly clear, but enough to move forward without feeling fake. Enough to finally feel like I was returning home. Finding my way back. I used to think losing myself was the end of something. Like I had broken beyond repair. Like I had gone too far to come back. But now, looking back at everything, I see it differently. Losing myself wasn't the end, it was a signal. A warning that I had been living out of alignment for too long. This journey didn't turn me into a perfect person. I still overthink sometimes. I still get confused. I still have moments where I question myself. But the difference now is, I notice it. I don't ignore it. I don't run from it. And that awareness, that connection, is what keeps me grounded. I didn't find myself by chasing something outside. I found myself by slowing down, by being honest, by making small choices that actually felt right. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fast. But it was real. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm living my life, not just reacting to it. So if you ever feel like you've lost yourself, just remember this. Maybe you're not lost. Maybe you've just drifted too far from what's real. And if that's the case, then coming back isn't impossible. It just starts with one simple step, choosing to face yourself again.